Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Lori and Catherine and Kenji. And today we're continuing our discussion of Sacred Contracts by Caroline Myss. And we are in chapter 3 at the very beginning. In the hard copy, it's page 78. And I'm not sure where it is in the Kindle, but Catherine will let you know. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then Catherine can take it away with the reading. And jump out, everybody. There's Jason.
And Sisek in Las Vegas.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Kenji in Maine, yes.
Jason in Tampa.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine Clement. And in the Kindle, it's on page 78, chapter 3, The Stages of a Sacred Contract. All growth occurs in stages, and spiritual development is no exception. Yet sometimes we are not even aware that we have passed from one stage to the next until sometime afterward. One of the leading mystics in the West today, Ram Dass, was born into a wealthy family and was already pursuing a successful career as a Harvard professor and research psychologist when his life suddenly changed. While at Harvard in the early 1960s, Richard Alpert, as Ram Dass was known then, became interested in human consciousness and, together with Timothy Leary, conducted intensive research with LSD, psilocybin, and other psychedelic drugs in a circle that included Aldous Huxley and Allen Ginsberg. That's probably not how you pronounce those names, but the psychedelic experiences completed upending Alpert's rationalistic world and introduced him to realms of consciousness outside anything he had learned about in his studies and research in psychology. After Alpert and Larry were dismissed from Harvard because of the controversial nature of their work, Alpert continued his research with a private foundation for 4 more years. Although the mind-expanding drugs had transformed him, he was also concerned about the transient nature of his highs. No matter how marvelous they were, he always came down. Like Leary and Ginsberg, Alpert in 1967 decided to travel to India in search of new experiences. A fellow American seeker whom he met there introduced Alpert to a spiritual master named Neem Karoli Baba. The holy man instructed him in yoga and meditation and gave him the spiritual name Baba Ram Dass, or Servant of God. Alpert had finally found a high that he didn't have to come down from. Returning to the United States as Baba Ram Dass, he lectured widely, wrote several influential books about the spiritual path, including Be Here Now, and developed the Prison Ashram Project, designed to help inmates grow spiritually, and later the Living Dying Project, which helped the terminally ill to experience mindfulness, insight, and peace as they died. I'll have to check that one out. There are 3 stages to the journey I have been on, Ram Dass wrote after returning from India. The first, the social science stage. The second, the psychedelic stage. And the third, the yogi stage. They each contributed to the next, he said, like the unfolding of a lotus flower. Yet looking back, he realized that many of the experiences that made little sense to me at the time they occurred were prerequisites for what was to come later. But the stages of Ram Dass's journey were not finished. Now, in his 60s, after he finished writing a new book about conscious aging, his publisher returned the manuscript, feeling it lacked conviction. While he was trying to figure out how to improve it, Ram Dass had a stroke that left him paralyzed, yet fully conscious. For the first time in his life, this eloquent teacher and mystic, who had sometimes been accused of arrogance, found himself totally dependent for his survival on the help of close friends and medical personnel. After years of struggling to heal, Ram Dass did continue teaching, and having experienced some of the challenges of aging, he was able to bring profound insights to his book on aging, entitled Still Here, which was published to great appreciation. The stages of Ram Dass's spiritual unfoldment could hardly have been clear to him at the time they were happening. Before he suffered his stroke, he probably had little sense that further growth and life challenges were necessary for him. Each stage made perfect sense, the lotus flower unfolding, but only in retrospect. Many other mystics, including Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross, also went through multiple stages of awakening or enlightenment. Saint Teresa likened their progression to walking through the rooms of a mansion, and Saint John to ascending a mountain. Based on the experiences of these and other mystics from different spiritual traditions, the scholar Evelyn Underhill, in her classic book Mysticism, distilled the enlightenment process into 5 stages. She called them the stages of awakening, purification, illumination, the dark night of the soul, and divine union. In the just one. In the unfolding of the sacred contracts of the great spiritual masters, we can see a similar progression. These mystical stages represent an archetypal model of progression to soul clarity. That is, the capacity to recognize that the material contents and relationships of our physical world are here only as props or parts of our service to our contract. The stages by which the spiritual masters became aware of the nature of their contracts are the same as the 5 stages through which we must go. Indeed, the same resistance to what we might label the divine call that the prophets felt is evident in our own resistance to the inner voice of intuition. The difference is mainly one of degree. You may want to pause and reflect for a time here on any promptings or coincidences or intuitions you've had over the years. Write them in your journal or notebook. Note whether they came to you in a dream, through a comment, warning, or compliment from a loved one or stranger, through the lyrics of a song, or a feeling you got from music or nature, or through something you experienced or learned through work or a past time. How did you react to these inklings at first? Did you welcome or ignore them, or even suppress them? Did you act on them? What happened afterward? The way you receive intuition or callings or guidance will help you determine the kinds of archetypal forces that are at work in your life and will ultimately help you discern your sacred contract. Abraham's awakening to the nature of his sacred contract follows the 5 stages outlined below. As with anything we learn, the stages generally overlap and continue to unfold throughout our life as we grow or develop a skill or insight. The stages are not a strictly linear progression, but rather a continuous process of growth and unfoldment that you may go through a number of times in your life as you encounter new challenges or circumstances. Number 1.
Do we
Contact.
want to
do you want to stop?
pause
Okay.
and reflect for a time on
Sure.
on any prompts or coincidences or intuitions you've had over the years? Anyone have
None.
on that?
I've had 0.
Seriously? Yeah, I mean, she says here, pause right here, and then make some notes in your journal. I'm like, well, I don't have a journal that I'm going to work in, but you know, talk about some of these things that she's suggesting with the, what'd she say? Coincidences or intuitions? How do
Isn't
they
that
come?
amazing?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Who's had a coincidence or intuition?
Over the years, I've had them, but I can't necessarily recall exactly, you know, what happened or transpired at the time because it's been, but I know I recognize the sense and the feeling, I guess. I'll just get a weird sense coming over me of like, okay, this is something either I've been through it before or I've kind of have a, it's hard to explain. Just, you just kind of, you just feel it, but I can't really explain the feeling because I think for everybody it's going to be a little different and more within themselves of how they sense things and deal with things and stuff like that. Um, kind of like um, for me, with good close friends or families or situations that I'm really in tune to, that's when I think it becomes a little more aware. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say I think mothers have a stronger and more in tune sense, especially within their own kids or even grandkids. You just, sense that, you know, and I can't explain it, but I do believe that.
A presence or understanding.
We know Jason has had a premonition dream with the flooding in Florida. I've had so many. Y'all have heard most of mine, though. I mean, basically, I learned to listen to them because when I don't, bad shit happens. Like when I was about ready to get on my horse, the one that I had the fall from that took my career and changed my life in so many ways. As I was as I was putting my foot in the stirrup, they told me, tighten the girth. And I said, oh no, I've already tightened it 3 times. It doesn't need to be tightened again. I can't get any tighter. Well, the minute I put my foot in the stirrup, the saddle slid around under her belly and she started bucking. And I was like halfway into the saddle at that point. So I got bucked off and that's how I got hurt. So I learned to listen. Um, then I got it's gonna flood. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm not Noah, like, what are you talking about? It's not gonna flood. It doesn't flood in Colorado. But I listened and I did what they said. And sure enough, Colorado had like 1,000-year flood or whatever, when they haven't had one in forever and ever and ever. And then it comes and decimates everything. So my understanding, at least of my messages or hints, is to listen and not try to say you've already done it 3 times. It doesn't need to be done anymore. Get all. I shouldn't be talking back to my elders.
Yeah, for sure. I thinking back, I mean, I used to have a lot more intuitive feelings when I was younger and, like my early 30s back. And I don't know why it is that if life just got so busy that I just kind of, I don't know, turned it off for a while, I don't know. But it hasn't really come back to me, but I haven't been trying to tune into it as much. But I mean, I suppose there's a short period of time when we were in the camper, when we lived in the camper for those 3 years and I was in nature all the time that I felt more in the flow of the spiritual side of it, I guess you could say. And then now I feel more I'm like caught back up in the rat race again, But I don't know. What's interesting to me though is that the little intuitive things that have happened, or not intuitive necessarily, but like the coincidental kind of a things. So I've had those happen sometimes, but it's little things. It's like when I'm thinking of my grandmother, and then I'll see a cardinal outside, and then it'll remind me of this pillow that she had stitched that had a cardinal on it, or it's little things like that, or like when, I like, was it yesterday or the day before, I called my daughter and she was like, I was just going to call you, kind of those kind of things, which happens, but not so much on the other side of it. I'm trying to remember. I had a thought a minute ago of something that came up. Oh, I've tried to pay attention to kind of like when I have those feelings, if you will. It's like when we were at the other house and Chris and I would go on the motorcycle off and on, and sometimes I would have a feeling we'd get on the motorcycle and we'd start going down the road, and I'd have a feeling that I don't want to be here. This is not what I want to do now that we're on it. I'm like, but I didn't want to be all, I just don't feel like doing this anymore. But I'd have a feeling, and I'm like, I think we need to go back, you know. And so, and he
Did
would
you
listen
actually
to me.
tell Chris that you needed to go back, or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I did because, he's had a motorcycle accident before, and I haven't, but I don't want to be in one. And I'm like, I don't know what the feeling was or why or whatever, and there's no way I'll ever know. I'd rather not know, but because that's one of those kind of things, like any kind of accident could be happening around town, and we might have gotten tangled up in it. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, we went back. I mean, it happened to me a couple different times when we got ready to go out on the motorcycle, and I'm like, I'm not going to second chance that feeling, whether it is accurate or not is irrelevant, So, because there's been
Most
other times in my
definitely.
life where I have like feelings like what Catherine said, come up and say, do this again or do that again. And I have a hard time discerning whether it is an intuitive feeling or like an OCD process. Yeah. So, I don't know. If it doesn't seem like it's a big thing, then I don't stress about it so much anymore. But I do feel like I need to tune back in and
I
see if I can.
definitely cannot go into it, but I have had two instances where I had dreams that I just kind of blew it off. I done that voice didn't come to me. I'm not going to listen to what it said. And boy, did I regret that a couple years down the road. Major changes in my life that were devastating. So now I am constantly on alert for those little voices since I can't seem to figure out which way to go, what what is my sacred contract?
Interesting. The two, between you, Lori, and what Samantha was saying a minute ago, I got to thinking. It's interesting because I think you hit something there, how we get into the busyness and the things going on, and it made me just realize that I'll be honest, over the last 3 years, ever since my accident in April 2022, I have not really been settled. I have been very uh, that because of what I went through with that, and 3 years later, I'm still not settled because of how all that played out, and then over the last, things that have happened with my car over the last year or so. And I'm wondering if that's part of not necessarily the coincidences or the things like that, but getting not being tuned in. And for me, with my beliefs, or more in tune with God and how, and maybe I'm just so fighting a lot of what's been going on rather than, I don't want to say accepting it, but realizing, okay, it is what it is, move forward and get out of that, because and I feel that every time I want to move forward, something happens and it keeps me here. And it's because I'll admit, even I don't even, I get plenty of sleep, and I'm rested, but at the same time, I don't feel totally rested, if any of that makes kind of sense. And I know it's all, oddly enough, I think it all stems from that accident 3 years ago and how it just totally abrupted and changed and affected my life wholeheartedly. And I don't think if I admit it, I don't think I've fully come to terms with that either. And that might be part of, that may be part of why I'm not getting, where I feel I'm not getting any direction or guidance or moving forward or something to where I can open that pathway to receive some of those premonitions or guidance or things from God saying, okay, go this way. If any of that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I'm not sure. But that's
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of want a manual, what I'm supposed to do next, and there is no such thing.
This harness is fast and easy to put on. I simply slip
What
it
the
over
heck?
Sadie's head.
Sorry, guys. My phone is doing something wacky.
Just so y'all know, he's looking for a collar for his dog. It's not like some kind of weird sex sling or something.
Right. I mean, it's I apologize. I was doing it before we got on the call, and it's a real bad problem because I can't get a leash on her, and I could lose my apartment. This is no joke. They're allowing me to take her out right now, but it's not a good situation. I need to be able to get a leash on her, and I can't bend down, so my options are limited. And now she's got a phobia of a leash, and that's becoming a problem. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Have to
I
box trainer
box trainer.
like a cat.
I can't get her into a box, but anyway, let's get back to our topic. I was trying to multitask. Guilty.
You know, I appreciate that, Kenji, and you know, I think
We'll find
maybe
it.
it'll come to you and you'll get it worked out. But we can talk about it later if you'd like. Um, I Yeah, I don't know that, like Dan, what you're saying, I mean, I think that's one of the things is like we look towards we want this guidance, right? Like what Lori was saying. We're looking for these things that will a hint, uh a uh, a, a golden arrow pointing the way, or a feeling that will tell us that things are that this is the right path or the wrong path. Um, Except I don't think I don't know, but that it works, that it necessarily works that way. You know, um, I I'd say most of us do not have a clear connection with anyone or anything that can provide us with that guidance. So it's the most of us aren't afforded that. I mean, I think it's wonderful um, that Catherine is able to get some that guidance herself. Um, I think that like what you're saying, Samantha, that when we do have these thoughts and these feelings, then we have to decide what do we go with that, or do we brush it off to just our over concern for what's happening, or our or the idea that we've been taught to always like solve these problems or look out for danger, or I mean, uh, in some ways it seems that a lot of the best times have been when you just kind of go with the flow and you are focused on the good times, um, and yet sometimes life is a way of slapping you in the face and saying wake up. And um, depending on how it is, it can be kind of like a shell shocker that you get, that blindsides you enough to where you're now a little, um, you do everything with a little more caution than you have had before. And then I think that somehow can stifle our ability to even follow the path that we, you know, genuinely like to follow. So I think in one way, looking for that guidance, it can sort of muddy our path. Um, but being aware of it when it does come around, to then take note, but don't allow it to necessarily change our path, since our path is something if our path is something we've chosen already. I tell you, I do. If there's a situation where it's like I'm being forced to do something and I didn't want to do it to begin with, and then I get the feeling that this is not a good thing to do on top of it, then, it's like I get like multiple things that are like I shrug off the first two, and then another thing happens. I'm like, I should probably see if there's an alternate path that I could take that will still get me to where I'm going, not throw me off, the ultimate goal of what I'm trying to do, but maybe just try, find a different path for what I'm about to do. We can go have fun. We can postpone this a few minutes, or maybe we take the car instead for a drive, or maybe we step back for a minute and say, let me take a look and see if there's something else I forgot about this, or you know um, but yeah, I get what you're saying, especially when it's out of the blue and it's a shocking event. It can continue to last in and continue to affect and color our paths in the future. And I sort of lean towards the side that, well, I think it's also helpful to try to go further past it and figure a way through it. And that for me, it's like, well, if nothing else, I need to learn that lesson to move on through it and do it in a positive way, But I'd like to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think so. With that whole when you're in the thing, whatever it is, the maelstrom of the situation you've gotten yourself into is, yeah, it's pushing on through and trying to have a positive attitude to work your way to the other side of it or whatever. And I kind of wonder if where he was talking or she was talking about the different stages of, where was she saying that? The the stages of awakening, and one of them is the dark night of the soul, and that one kind of was interesting to me because if these are in the order you're supposed to go through them, then it could be that you have some really amazing experiences in the spiritual realm, and then all of a sudden you're faced with a dark night of the soul. And I'm wondering if that's where I'm at in my kind of spiritual journey, is this kind of yeah, crossroads, or like it. But if that's what happens when you're on your path and you think you're going in the right direction, then somehow or another you're not, or you don't think you are, and you're struggling with it, you're fighting against it. And Um, and that is like a big opportunity for learning, I guess, or a big opportunity for something. But I think what you're saying there, Jason, with the idea of just, yeah, pushing through it, getting through it with a positive attitude or something, or just so you're not making it worse for yourself than it needs to be. I guess. I don't know. I know I make things worse for myself a lot of times than what it probably needs to be, but
You're
oh
not
my
alone.
goodness. Why do we
It's
do that? I don't know.
it's easier said than done. And I'll be honest, in my case in point, I survived that accident, even though it cost me a lot of money. It cost me a time on my car. It cost me, it almost did me in along with like what's happened over the last year. But I'm still here and I'm still moving forward. But it's weird how I feel like as I keep saying, okay, maybe now, okay, I've gotten all that taken care of. I've gotten all that. And going back to like what you say, maybe this is part of my dark night of my soul or whatever, or God let me really work through a lot of these things to put my reliance more on in my for how I look at it on him and trust that I will get to the other side. But in this moment, I'll be honest, I'm not settled and I don't feel, even though I'm trying to say, yes, okay, I believe, I'm trusting, I'm trying to move forward. And every time I say, okay, got that all taken care of, got that little, you know, I was telling Samantha before you guys jumped on, I just had to replace my car engine fan, because even though I was getting air, I wasn't getting cold air. And I had Freon, but it just, so I had to replace that. And then this last Monday, I had a tire get a screw in it, and it totally, made my tire go flat, and the tire wasn't replaceable, so I had to replace that. And it seems, and that's what I'm talking about. Seems like every time I think things can maybe finally, hopefully for a while, move forward, and I'm not focused on the car or on the issues, because then when this happened, I go back to that original accident where I had to pay out $2,500, where I had to get an Uber rental, where spend extra money, and it really upended my life, and my life keeps getting upended, and I draw it right back to there. So that's why I said that's why I'm not settled. That's why I'm not, and anything that comes up, I really don't want to receive it. I really want to tell it to go fucking pick on somebody else. Go highlight somebody else. Go, devastate their life. Sorry, I'm not wishing any devastation on anybody, but mine's been this way for 3 years. I'm sorry, I normally don't talk like this, but I am fucking tired to hear with it. And that's why I said I'm so unsettled. And maybe that's part of why I can't get settled and move forward too. And I may be blocking out all the things coming to me saying, just maybe let go and let it. Uh, uh, I don't know. Maybe you can sense my frustration. I don't know.
Yeah, sure do.
Yep, yep.
Sure do. Um, you know, what I've found has been fairly helpful is flooding my mind with positive thoughts and positive alternative ways of looking at things, which I haven't been haven't been able to come up with by myself. So I'm really appreciative of what's on YouTube. If you do searches for specific things that you're want to handle, you can get perspectives and you can um, choose the things that you want to replace, um, you know, re- if you can, because we kind of like what you're saying, Dan. We sort of we something happens in the now that we then start to connect backwards to something that happened in the past, and then all of a sudden now we're reliving the past moment. And so what I was trying to get at is you to fill one of those sequence of events with a different perspective that allows me to break that you know connection of
Pattern.
dots from going all the way back to that event, to where these each one of those sections or whatever is reframed, so to speak. um, and that really helps, but it doesn't stop the new things from coming. You can reframe and recolor and understand what's happened in the past, but there still will be new things coming from our future path that we need to also prepare for, be okay with, move past quickly, um, and not get stuck in, and not allow to get back into that cycle, or I guess of connecting the dots back to something else. And uh, so flooding your mind with positive things, positive thoughts, and just be like choosing to not think of it in the way that bothers you, but choosing to think of it in a better way, whatever it is that happened, um, and just letting it be that better way instead of all the possibilities that it could have been, that or negative meanings that it could have had. um, it kind of brings me to the idea of our free will, in that what if our free will is not just a a suggestion or a choice to make our own decision, but it's our ability to create the now and the future that we want. It is like the power that the universe has given us to do that. And that if we are focused on having that will, the will to not dwell on the negative, but the will to continue to focus on the positive and to work through and get our cars fixed and do all the maintenance things and just have it on a regular schedule to, check our AC and check our things, and it's part of our regular thing that we do, and we accept it as a choice of living in the most positive way, rather than everything being a burden and a chore. Then we get to really create it for ourselves with being the authority over it. Um, and again, it's not to say that things won't come and slap us in the face, but uh, but then again, that is part of the experience of life, I guess. Sort of the same thing as we're, the inevitability of death, that we don't want to, it's just something that is going to happen, and at some point for all of us, and we don't, but it's part of life. And so you choose to live, you choose voluntarily, and you choose to make things happen, but that free will being more of, what if it's more of like our superpower, that if we're able to, that if we choose to let go of the negative stuff and not color our future with the negatives of the past, then it gives us a clean slate to do whatever we want with our future. Does that make? All right, that's
No, you you make sense and you make some good valid points.
like you said,
And
it's easier said than done, I guess, but
yeah,
that wasn't
but
easy said.
going back to, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push
You're fine.
everybody a little off subject there. Um, but getting into the thoughts and premonitions, I would right now I would welcome, maybe a couple of those voices that Catherine had, like when she was told to gird that saddle that third time. You know, I would right now I would love something that would kind of be that powerful or that impressive of an impression or feeling or sense to tell me, that, because I would welcome it, and I'm open to that right now because it is, and maybe that's part of this journey. Maybe I'm getting myself a little more opening to receiving more of what God, the universe, as I look at it, God, opening to be more receptive to hearing and moving forward in the direction I need to go, and hopefully taking my focus off. But I have to admit, every time something goes wrong with my car, I can't help it. It just takes me back to not, it's almost like, okay, really, again, something, why? I do the best I can to keep upkeep. I do the best I can to make sure, because I need to, because of Ubering. So I got to do the best to keep my car, you know. So so that's why I said I think it keeps drawing me back, when in my head and in me and in my whole psyche, it's like, something, please just tell me, show me how to get out of this, give me that premonition, give me that, you know, um, nudge, But then again, I mean, maybe I'm saying it, but maybe I'm not as open to it as I think I am too. And that might be another part of the problem.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I was just going to say, first of all, when they told me to tighten the girth, in that moment, I didn't make the connection. Oh, my guides are telling me to tighten the girth. I thought it was my inside head, my fears telling me to do something that I knew I had already done 3 times. So I don't think any of us get through one day without guidance and assistance from the other side. I really don't. Now, whether you're aware of the messages or the warnings or whatever, or whether you're not, that's one thing. But Dan, I want you to hear this as if it was God talking to you, because in my mind, I know that anybody that drives for a living is going to constantly have repairs. Samantha and I have this talk every day. Like, not every day, but a lot, because they have a trucking business. My dad's in the trucking thing, and his truck is broken. Matter of fact, he was just stranded in North Dakota for the last 5 days because his transmission went out when he was up there pulling a horse trailer. And it's an every day or an every week thing. And if you're going to drive for a living, you have to accept that and not let it stress you out. or you need to find another profession. In my mind, being you, I would have been out of Ubering a long time ago. I think you've gotten lots of messages and signs, but I think you're determined that you're going to do it the way you want to do it. And that's how we all get. We get in our head, this is how I want it to be. I don't want to be in pain, or I don't want to be in a wheelchair, or I don't want to have my car breaking down all the time. And we get it set in our head how you got to fix it so that it's the way I want it. And that's not how it works. Like they warn you all the time. They warn you through accidents. They warn you through things breaking down so much you don't have the money to fix it. They warn you through it. It doesn't have to be a voice that comes out of the dark, because that happens to very few people until they learn how to grow that. You have to practice these things, being in contact with spirits. I'm in classes 3 or 4 days a week, practices or classes. It's not something that just happens. You have to develop it. I mean, some people don't have to develop it, I guess, but most people do. And even when it's developed, you're still going to question, and you're still going to have hard-headedness. And, the thing that I always struggle with is, is this obstacle that's sitting in front of me? Is this something that it's a life lesson that I need to push through? I need to, be a warrior. People are always saying, be a pain warrior. Well, I don't want to be a pain warrior, because I don't want to be a fucking war all the time. Like, being at war is not good, whether it's for good or for bad. It's still warring. It's still, yes, it gives you, being a warrior, it gives you that sense of, oh, I can accomplish anything. But what if that's not the point? You know, what if, what if we're not supposed to be warriors to blast through all this stuff and, fight until our last breath? I hate it when I hear, especially like they're always making examples out of movie stars and stuff when they get sick and, oh, they fought and they finished that film. That was the last thing they did. They died the minute the film was over. Well, what about their family? And what about, I mean, if making that film was the only thing important to them in their life, then that's cool. But what about spending time with their kids? Or, like, there's a lot more to life than just pushing through things. So is this obstacle in front of me something that I'm supposed to push through and endure and learn from? Or is it just a happy little warning sign that's saying, back off and go a different direction? Think about what you're doing. You know, maybe we've done this before and we don't have to do it again. But just as far as no spirit guides, no, I'm just talking reality here. Reality is that anything mechanical that's overused breaks down. And if you use your car or your truck for a living, it is going to break down. And you're just going to have to accept that if you're going to be in this profession. It is part of it, and everybody experiences it. It's not God beating up on you, Dan. Like, it's really not, because Samantha's going through the same thing. My dad's going through the same thing. My car's been sitting for almost 4 years because I ran it into the road. Same thing, doing Uber Lyft. Everybody that I know, except the people that are making videos and making money off of making videos now with Uber and Lyft, like, most people drive themselves into the ground and put themselves in so much debt that they can't get back out. Like, it seems like it's a good, easy to do kind of, well, not easy, it's not easy, but you know what I mean? Like, it seems like it's a good alternative. It's a great thing. You can turn the meter on and off whenever you want. If you don't feel like driving today, you don't have to. And all of those are pluses. But the reality of driving for a living is that your shit is going to break down constantly, or somebody's going to run into you, or, whatever else.
So much
Kath?
so that I gave up having a car. I didn't want all that headache, and even though it really limits and confines in me in my life, there's too many other factors out there. Don't let it defeat you, Dan. Maybe you're supposed to go into that bookkeeping business that you've talked about forever.
Well, and the other thing with anytime you use a vehicle for, we didn't want this to turn into a, hey, Dan, you need to stop doing what you're doing, but
No, no, no.
Yeah.
we're already here, so.
No, well, no.
No, I mean, I'll tell you,
Okay.
I had three trucks in the shop this past week, three of them. And the parts on every single one of them were over $500. I mean, and it was actually more than that on one of them. You know, I had one that had engine problems. I had one that had a broken spring. I had another one that, what was the other one? It was, what the heck was the other one? Maybe it was engine problem. No, it was a transmission. It was the clutch was I don't know, the throwout bearing or something. So I had to pull out the clutch, and it was a new clutch, and it was new parts, and it was new this, and it was that. I mean, we were really lucky that this week didn't cost me, 20 grand, but could have easily. We just happened to get fair parts prices and decent labor, and Coda did a lot of it. And that's the thing. If I didn't have Coda and Chris, who are both mechanics, we would have been out of business a long time ago. We wouldn't have made it this far. I mean, we didn't make it the first time we tried trucking. We didn't have enough money in the bank, and that was the problem. I mean, you can't be in this type of business without having a big savings account that is going to cover your breakdowns, because you're going to have them. I mean, it's a reality of anything that is auto related business. And I hate it for you. I hate it, Dan. But yeah, Catherine's definitely right on that.
No, I apologize. I was not trying to get this into
No,
this or anything like that. And I went into this fully understanding that. And I had money saved, I had money put away. And I will be honest, that accident 3 years ago is what ate up that savings. And I've been wanting to get back to that. But I am in the process of working. I found a mentor and I'm doing that and trying. The last month or so, I've been kind of out of sorts because I've been focused on other things. So I am working on trying to get out and get my bookkeeping stuff going. And that's going to take a little bit of time and stuff. So yes, I am very aware of that. And I'm very aware that I'm going to have expenses with my car. I'm not I'm not mad in the sense of the expenses per se. I understand that. It's just the timing and when they happen. It's the, and and I
So
get
you're
you.
saying there's a good time
I know
somewhere?
it's never when it's a good time.
Well, yeah, but and that's why I said I'm sorry. That was not my intent today. And but when it got talking about some of those things, and it's like I I wish I could have prepared a little more, or but that's so I apologize. And oh, we're almost at the top of the hour. That was not my intention, and I am so sorry, you
No,
guys.
we love you, Dan, and we know. And I just every day that I hear from you and I hear you struggling, and I'm like, I know what you're going through. I mean, we went through it with our trucking company, but while I was Ubering a little bit, of course I recognized it from the get-go that this was not going to be profitable. But that was because I'd been in trucking and I knew what it was all about before. And I mean, we lost everything because of trucking back in the day, and it wasn't just because of the 2008 crash. I mean, that was a piece of it, but it was because of our lack of funds. And we started out with a fair amount, but we still ran out, and even this time, I start out with a better method of operation for setting aside money for repairs and maintenance and everything. And I still am looking at the numbers going, I don't know if we're going to survive, I just don't know. So it's one of those things where no matter how much we want to, I don't know, we're waiting on the guidance to help us get through this thing. We're waiting on accumulating enough so that, oh, okay, we can change to do something else, and but there's more factors involved. So I completely understand, Dan. I mean, because we got to figure out where we're going before we can make a change to to really change what we're doing in order to switch over to the other thing, and we got to pay our bills while we're doing it. So that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, God, life is complicated, and it doesn't get less complicated. At least it doesn't seem like it does to me. Every time it gets less complicated, for whatever reason, I just make it more complicated again. It's kind of like, over with before we lived in the camper, we had all this stuff that we were just this and the bills and everything else. And I'm like, I'm getting rid of all of it. And we're just going to simplify our lives, and we're going to live, we're going to go RV full time. We're going to go that route. And that was simple life, minimal bills, minimal everything. And then, but there's other people involved, my husband, and, being the other people. And he didn't like that. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with that life. He wants more, because he feels like that's the thing, the man thing, to provide for the family, to pass on to his kids, all of that. And so then we came back into it. Now we've accumulated a whole bunch more and a whole bunch more responsibilities and everything. So it's this roller coaster in life, and we think we're following the path. But what's funny is that when we were in the camper and I was in that real peaceful spiritual place and was imagining, we're not imagining, but visualizing, all the things we were doing back then about, just kind of deciding what we wanted out of our life and trying to make that place. I mean, this is what it produced. So, we're back here. I don't know. I guess I'm just supposed to be in this. So I don't
It
know.
seems
Maybe
we're
you're just
all,
supposed to be in it, Dan, and we just are just supposed to go through it regardless of whether we know better or not. I don't know.
that seems to be the entire reality, that life has always had us searching for something to be better or different or easier. And I guess it's
What is that feeling? Why
the
is it that no
intuition and
matter
this.
what it is that we're doing, we want it to be different? I mean, what's that about?
Exactly.
Which then in turn causes us to want to look for the guidance and the direction and okay. Yeah,
Where's the intuition, the
yeah,
spirit, the guidance,
right.
the hope?
And but going back to like what Catherine said, to kind of even in my head wrap this up, would I listen at that moment, and would I question it, and or would I kind of go, oh, I've done this, or oh, it's not, and would I really listen and pay attention at that time? So I'm glad we went over this little chapter and this little part, but at the same time, it also just makes me question and think all the more, to be honest.
Well, what Catherine said um, about not making the connection in order to do something about it is, that's been my experience as well. It's like, and and sometimes, I mean, what if you do get that overpowering word from the universe and it throws you in a way that you then stumble on something else because you don't know how to react, and then you're reacting to something that's kind of, I mean, that's happened to me before as well. So um I mean, if you're like about to do something, like you go, you're about to walk into a room of important people, and then you stop for a second and go, okay, universe, or okay, God, you know, how should I be about this, or should I go in or shouldn't I go in? And then you stop and clear your mind and get in the right state of mind to receive it, and then you get that information right then at that point, so you can make that connection to your next action. then that's one thing. But it's usually out of the blue. You're not expecting it. And so it's sort of in that path of being in the flow that you might be able to receive some guidance, but then do you then stop everything to evaluate it and try to figure out what it means? And does that in itself change your path to the point where it doesn't matter anymore, or it's even more significant, or whatever? I mean, yeah. I mean, it's almost, you have to train yourself to be like knee-jerk reaction and be able to make that connection. Um, the same as like if you want to be in a positive state of mind all the time, yet you got to be looking for problems and preparing for the problems. This could go wrong, that could go wrong. I got to do this and that to make sure that this is maintained and all this other stuff. At the same time, you're supposed to be, happy and joyful and let and not be affected by it. So it's, yeah, and I guess that's where that is kind of the art of it all. And for those people that like boast, like, oh, I'm a multitasker. That's like what you're saying, Samantha. Like, everyone is a multitasker. That's what life makes you be, is a multitasker. So, and yet science says that we are no good at being multitaskers.
No, we're not.
The studies show that we are terrible at being multitaskers. So maybe that's the problem.
And then there's studies on the studies.
Oh yeah, sure.
But
Wow.
you bring up a good point. You know, yes, I try to be as positive as I can. I, wake up. I will be honest, I say my prayers and, ask God for help, guidance, deliverance all during the day. And most of the time, I, 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 I always get it. It just is not always in the way I perceive it. That's how I'm going to put it. And two, but sometimes I think, like you were saying, we're trying to stay positive, happy, go, keep that energy because that's a higher vibration. But at the same time, you're like, okay, so, but this could happen, or that could happen, or this and that. And you're trying to keep all that at bay, and then something still slips in. And then that's when it feels like, and I think that's when we get overwhelmed. I'll be honest. You get overwhelmed and and then, like you said, you do a knee jerk reaction, like, oh, now yeah. And then I think that's in a roundabout way. Maybe that's where I've been for 3 years, I, to put it in a figurative stance. I mean, I know it's not always been exactly like that, but to convey that picture, and maybe that's part of, or maybe I've been telling myself I'm positive and focused in all this, but really I haven't either. And that might be interesting thought there. Now I got to contemplate that.
I just brought that up just to show you that, I'm not just making that shit up. Like, seriously, after expenses, especially when you're leasing from them. Oh my God, because I leased for a year through Uber, and you really have to drive 14 hours a day, 7 days a week to make anything when you're leasing. Like, it is it's
Hmm.
ruthless, you know, because you're paying like $1,000 a week for the lease. I mean, it's crazy, and you can't just go to a like a rental place and rent a car and use that, like Avis or whatever some of them are called. They don't allow people to use those cars to do drive share. And that right there should tell you something. They are turning down business to people who would use their cars for ride share because it wears out the car. All the stopping and stopping and stopping and starting and all of that, you know. And it's not just, I just want you to know, Dan, it's not just you, honey. Like it is the industry.
Oh, I fully know. I had to rent a car for 4 months, and that's when even I'm like, that's a losing proposition. And at least with my car, I'm I do make an income, and yes, there are expenses associated with it, and yes, I had an accident, and once I paid the deductible and all that, it got fixed. And the little things that have happened over the last year or so, they were not cheap, but they were not, I dealt with them the way I had to deal with them, and that was my decision. I think what I'm more, it's just been the timing of when things have happened, and that's been my biggest thing. It's like I understand it's going to happen. I fully know it's going to happen. I fully expect it to happen. It's just, and maybe that's part of what I'm railing against. It's always at the wrong time. That's, I think, more what I'm frustrated
We're
with.
back to that. So there is a right time, a good time.
Well, no, there's never a good time, but maybe if, like when I had the money and then I spent the money that I had saved up after I had the accident 3 years ago, and that, so like I said, I don't want to belabor this, and we're past the hour anyway. So, but that I think is just what is my underlying thing. It's never the right time, and maybe it just seems more prevalent because that's what I'm focused on, and maybe I need to take the focus off of that. And I'm going to try.
All right, guys. We should probably wrap up at least the recording. We can keep talking after we end the recording, but I'm I'm kind of
Yeah, go ahead.
interested. I'm really interested in learning these different things that I like this idea of the stages of awakening, because it makes me look at my life and go, okay, so maybe this what I'm going through right now is just part of my growth and I didn't recognize it. I thought I just got off the path. That's because that's what I've been feeling is that I've gotten off the path and that I'm back caught up in the maelstrom again. And am I ever going to get back on the path? And just feel like I don't have enough time for anything. It's like yesterday we was 4th of July. And by the way, happy 4th of July to anybody who is watching anytime. I forgot to say that when we jumped on here, but I actually took the day and didn't work, which is an unusual thing for me. I'm pretty much 7 days a week. I'm doing something for the business or, watching the kid and doing the business, but I took that day and I'm like, I really just had a nice day, and I just allowed myself to not feel obligated that I needed to be in the office working on the business. Now I will be in the office the rest of today, but that I took yesterday, And so, what was my point? I went off sideways with this. My point was that I was feeling like
In the
I had
stages.
fallen off the path of the stages, and now maybe I'm looking at it going, okay, maybe I actually am still on the path. I'm just in this kind of dark night of the soul side of it where I'm going through some shit in order to move to the next level. I don't know, something like that. It's interesting how we read these books and no matter what we have going on in our lives, we always seem to be on the right book for our journey, which is really amazing considering it's all of us, that we all, for what, and it's a random snapshot when we pick out a book. Maybe these books are our intuition that is saying, okay, here we go. We're going, this is the direction we're going because this is where we all need to go. So
hold on to your hats.
What'd you say?
Hold on to your hats.
Hold on to your hats. Put your seatbelts on. We're ready for a ride. I don't know. It's a good thing though. So I love you guys and I appreciate all of your insights and I appreciate everything that you have to say. And I know that we all have our struggles and our BS that we're going through and I'm glad that we have this ability to do it together. So I love you guys. With that, guys, have an awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you all. Whoever is out there watching, feel free to give us a like on our video if we've talked about anything that resonates with you, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get updated each time we upload a new video. So with that, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.